So, not only is this going to be my very first ever video game review, but it's time to begin the Sonic the Hedgehog Marathon! Hello everyone, and today I am starting the Sonic the Hedgehog Marathon. So, yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog is a series that I love so much, and now that it's turning 30 years old, I decided that I'm going to do a marathon dedicated to this series. But don't worry, I'll do my usual reviews, in between, since this will take a while between games. But, yeah, so to go with a little backstory, well, you probably know the backstory of Sonic the Hedgehog at this point, because during the 90s, Mario and Nintendo were on top of the world. They were ruling the video game industry, and Sega was all like, we need to give Nintendo some competition. So they scrapped their original mascot, Alex Kidd, for a new, richer, and newer mascot to compete with the likes of Mario. That character would later went on to become Sonic the Hedgehog. I'm pretty sure you know this song and dance routine by now. But, yeah, now that Sonic is a third-party company, well, Sega is. Sega's third-party now. Sonic games are on Nintendo consoles and everything else, so, yeah. But, to start off this review marathon, we're taking a look at the game that started it all, Sonic the Hedgehog. No, that's the movie. No, that's the Game Gear game. No, that's the 2006 game. Oh god, anything but that port. Anything but that game. Okay, well, yes, it is Sonic Genesis. It is a lot closer to the original game, even though it does suck. There you go. So, time to begin. Sonic the Hedgehog. Is it good, and does it still hold up, and is it something I can recommend to you? Let's find out. In terms of story, Sonic 1 doesn't have much, but that's because of the fact that it was made in 1991. In that time period, video game plots were only in the manual of the game in order to find out what was happening in the story. So, with Sonic 1's storyline, it's about Sonic trying to stop the evil Dr. Ivo Robotnik from turning the animals of the world into his robot army, and Sonic has to go through 7 zones, and at the end of each of them, destroy a capsule in order to free the animals and stop Dr. Ivo Robotnik's evil plans. Now, fun fact for y'all, in Japanese, Dr. Robotnik was called Eggman, where in the US they changed it to Robotnik because I think that Eggman would be silly for American audiences. Even though he's a round scientist with a goofy mustache fighting a blue hedgehog. Yeah. So let's talk about the gameplay. Sonic 1 is all about moving from point A to point B to get to the end of the level. So yeah, you basically have to move forward, but you also need to have good speed and platforming skills in order to get through some of these obstacles, especially in levels like Labyrinth Zone, Marble Zone, and of course, Scrap Brain Zone, but we'll talk about those levels in a bit. Sonic does while he does move fast, you have to build up the speed. Sonic 1 pretty much teaches the player that speed needs to be earned in order to move fast. Like, I really like the detail where it was Sonic, where when he runs through a loop, he gains his speed, where you can see his legs going into a figure 8 type movement. And yeah, and when you build enough speed and you press down the gamepad, Sonic rolls into a ball, sort of like his spin dash before he had the spin dash in Sonic 2. So, yeah. And throughout each levels, there are some parts where you can get some items. Like, for example, there's ring boxes, which when you get into it, it will give you 10 or so rings, which will give you extra, it will make you be able to take an extra hit. Basically, with rings, they allow you a free hit, but if you get hit without rings, you die. No questions asked. But if you fall into a bottomless pit, even with rings, you still die, and if you drown, you still die. So, yeah. And there are also shields that can also grant you an extra hit in case you have rings on you. So make sure you get those. And there are boxes with extra lives that have Sonic's face on it, which, well, if you touch those, well, then boom, Sonic gets an extra life free of charge. But at the end of each zone, there is, well, technically in order to get there, if you get 50 rings in a stage, each and go to the end of the level, there is a special ring. You jump in it and you go into a special stage. And before this playthrough, I have never fully 100% completed Sonic 1, since in order to 100% complete Sonic 1, you need to go through these rings. And I must say, these special stages are a bit of an acid trip, seeing how you had to move with all these flashing colors around and the stage always turning. It's kind of nauseating. But when you're able to get into there, you have to traverse the levels and make sure you don't go into the red things that say goal, or else you're out of the special stage. And you need to find the Chaos Emeralds, which are 6, not 7, in order to get the true ending of the game. See, Sonic 1 does have a good and bad ending in it, but it's all dependent on whether or not you can get the special Chaos Emeralds. If you get all 6 of them, then the special ending is that Sonic will use the power of the 7 Chaos Emeralds to make flowers pop up at the end of the game. Really? I went through all that bullcrap just for flowers? But depending on how many Chaos Emeralds you didn't get, at the end of the game, Dr. Robotnik will be juggling them around and around, laughing at you as he jumps up in the air, being a laughing a-hole. Stop laughing at me, Dr. Eggman! Stop laughing at me! In terms of graphics and music, Sonic 1 looks great, even 30 years later. Seriously, the sprite animations look great, all of the textures look nice, and the levels, all of them look fantastic to play through. Not a single one bothered me with how it looked. I seriously think the graphics still hold up 30 years later, and the music is top-notch. It's really solid, and I can listen to the soundtrack all day long. But what's gameplay, graphics, and music without levels? Sonic 1 has 7 zones, but most of them have 3 acts in a zone, with the final zone only having 1. Let's talk about them. There's Green Hill Zone, easily the most recognizable Sonic level to date, and even though it has fallen victim to being overused over and over and over and over again, it doesn't take away from how special it feels going through this zone in Sonic 1. It just feels iconic. I mean, sure, it does get overused to death, but it does make sense, even though they should stop reusing Green Hill Zone, the level, and imagery for other games. Seriously, so I gotta come up with a new level. But still, it's still fast-paced, you get a lot of fun playing through it, and it's just an overall great zone to start out with. Then there's Marble Zone, which is the complete opposite. It's mostly about tight platforming and going through linear hallways. So, yeah, you also have to move blocks in order to move the ceilings. And there is one problem I do have with this zone, that being 2 Batniks in particular. That being the Batnik and Caterkillers. I hate these ones because of the fact that you have to be very, very careful with how you attack them, because you have to jump or roll onto their head. If you miss, boom, you lose your rings, because they have spikes on them. And also you need to be careful when it comes to moving through lava on the floor. So, there. And then there's Spring Yard Zone, which is a combination of the first 2 zones, and it's a really fun zone. I love this zone so much to death. It's probably my favorite zone in Sonic 1, along with Green Hill Zone, another level that will come up very shortly. It's just so much fun, and it's just a lot of fun. I can't put it into words. It's just a fun zone that I can play through over and over again. It's just really great. It's fast-paced, and a lot of adrenaline to it. Then there's Labyrinth Zone. This zone is a pain in the ass. I agree with everyone, and I will say it as well. This zone sucks. Seriously, this is the worst level in Sonic 1 by a large mile. Seriously, while yes, I don't mind slow platforming in Sonic 1, it only bothers me in this zone here. Because of the fact that you're underwater, you will move slower than normal, and if you drown, then you die. And you want to know why Sonic can't swim underwater or can't breathe underwater? Because Yuji Naka thought that, oh, hedgehogs can't swim. Show the images of hedgehogs swimming, please, please, please. And they never fixed this. They never fixed the Sonic being able to swim except for Super Smash Bros. Seriously, it's that easy to fix, guys. But still, this zone is just a nightmare.
Wow, you're even more of a heartless monster than I am.
But thankfully, after you're done with this zone, you reach Starlight Zone, which, much like Spring Yard Zone and Green Hill Zone, is fast-paced, adrenaline, and it's just so much fun. But you do need to platform and make tight platforming segments a couple times. And you have to be careful with how you start a switch, because if you are on a switch, it could kill you, just saying, with the moving stairs. And then there's Scrap Brain Zone, a level where Robotnik decides to throw everything at you and 3 painful levels of torture, but it's fun. You have to dodge jigsaws, flamethrowers, the whole shebang as Robotnik throws everything at you, so you need to be careful and quick. Oh, and also at the end, there is technically Labyrinth Zone Act 4, so, have fun, but thankfully you can take a secret pathway in order to reach the final zone of the game, Final Zone, where it's about fighting Dr. Robotnik one last time in the final boss of the game. Also, I forgot to mention this during the gameplay section, but in this game, you have a 10-minute time limit in finishing a level. If you don't finish a level at the 10-minute time limit, you die. That's your only time limit in a level. But still. Now let's talk about the bosses. Now, this was made in the early 90s, so don't expect bosses to be on the same level as a great boss roster as, say, Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix. Don't expect it to be those type of bosses. In fact, these bosses are incredibly easy, but they are, for the most part, fun. Now, I'll make sure to leave this game a B when it comes to, being easy with its boss fights, seeing how the game was made in the early 90s. But the only boss giving me trouble was the final boss, until I realized I could just stand still and dodge all the lasers and stuff. But other than that, pretty decent boss roster, if I do say so myself. So, yeah, that's Sonic the Hedgehog. Is this game still great? Of course it is. I would highly recommend this game because it is the first game in the series, and for a game that's almost 30 years old, it still holds up really well. You're able to get this game on pretty much, well, any console, really. I mean, heck, even iOS and Android devices, you can get this game. So, yeah, it's still a really good game, and I would highly recommend it. But what would I give this game as a rating? No, it really comes close either between an 8 or a 9, but I'm going to give this game a solid 8.5 out of 10. It's in the middle between a 9 and a 5, no, a 9 and an 8, so yeah, I guess I might as well give it an 8.5 out of 10. So that being said, guys, see you all next time where we take a look at its sequel that came out 1 year later, Sonic the Hedgehog 2. See you all later and have a good day. Bye.